Hi, I'm 𝗰ciecie𝗸𝗶𝗲𝘀, and today I'm at the Creative Corner Studio in Orlando, Florida, and I'm going to show you how to make a universal cookie dough. What I mean by that is, how many times have you been caught off guard? That friend coming to visit and all you have in your pantry is chips, crackers, soda, maybe a bottle of wine? Well, let's bring dessert into the mix. I have a sweet tooth, and the best part about having company over is being able to give them something homemade. So today we're going to be making a simple cookie dough that you can add almost anything to, and it's just going to enhance the flavor, and you can keep it in your fridge anytime. So we have 3 teams that we're going to focus on. Whenever you make any kind of cookie dough, this is the process you're going to follow. It's called the creaming method. So we have our dry team right here. That's going to be 3 cups of flour and 3/4 teaspoons, so 3/4 teaspoons of baking powder. Then we have our fat team, our chubby team, whatever you'd like to say, 2 sticks of butter and 1 cup of just regular old granulated sugar you probably already have in your pantry. Then we have our wet team. So that's gonna be 1 tablespoon of milk, and you're just gonna mix this together in a bowl with a dash of vanilla. I say measure with your heart, so whatever feels right for you, that feels right for me. Then we're gonna crack an egg into this bowl or onto the counter. I brought 2! I brought 2! Was that incredible, or was that incredible? Or onto the counter. Accidents happen, and that's fine. At Creative Corner Studios, everything's okay. Then we're gonna crack an egg into this bowl. Next, we're gonna take whatever you have lying around and mix those together. Make sure those are thoroughly mixed, and that's our wet team. So to get started with the creaming method, we're actually going to start with the fats. So what that means is our butter, and again, this is just slightly soft. I let it sit on the counter for just a few minutes so that you can make a thumbprint inside of it. That's how you know it's ready to go. Unwrap that and add it to our mixer. 1 more stick. There we go. Set these aside. Now we're gonna go in with our sugar. So I have 1 cup of, again, plain white granulated sugar, and we're gonna add that directly to our mixer. Lock it in. The reason this is called the creaming method is actually what we're doing is creaming the butter and sugar together. So if we relied on just the baking powder in our dry good mixture here to create all the fluff in our cookies, we would probably be very disappointed. We need to give it a little help. So the structure of the sugar is actually poking little holes in the butter, fluffing it up to a completely different texture, which is going to allow space for the baking powder to do its job and give our cookies a little oomph. You can turn up the speed as you go. But what we're looking for here is for the butter and the sugar to really come together. So give it some time, and you're gonna notice the texture and the color change. It should be almost white. Alrighty. So I'm gonna pull this out here just so you can take a look. See, we're almost there. Everything's gotten a little bit lighter, and you can see the texture is just a little bit smoother. It's starting to stick to the side of the bowl, which means we're doing everything right, but it still needs a little bit more time. Alrighty. That is looking a little bit better, a little bit smoother. Again, we're looking for the color to be almost white. Ooh, much brighter. I'm gonna go ahead and scrape down my mixing paddle here. And the reason we wanna use the paddle attachment on our mixer is so we cream the butter and sugar together, but when we add our wet ingredients, which includes an egg, we don't have to worry about that egg whipping too much. Also, it's a lot easier to clean off the paddle attachment when it comes to cookie dough than it is to clean off the whisk. Scraped my bowl down here, and we're gonna get back to work. So now you can see the color and the texture really starting to change in our cookie dough. It should be climbing the walls of the bowl, almost trying to get its way out, so you may have to scrape a bit more towards the end of the process. Now, if you notice a pool of butter in the bottom of your mixer, you may have let your butter soften a little bit too much. So that's okay. Pop the whole mixing bowl back into the fridge and try again in a few minutes. Ours is looking great. Just a few more seconds, and then we're gonna go ahead and add our wet mixture here. Great. So I'm gonna go ahead and add our wet ingredients. Again, the beaten egg, tablespoon of vanilla, or tablespoon of milk, and a tablespoon of vanilla if you're feeling generous. We're gonna pour that in, and we're gonna mix this just until it combines. You're going to notice it starting to clump up, and that's absolutely normal. Again, you may need to scrape down the sides of the bowl just to make sure everything gets well incorporated. Alrighty. And again, mix on medium speed. Next up is gonna be our dry ingredients. This is just 3 cups of all-purpose flour. So whatever you have lying around in the pantry from the last time your grandmother came over and baked you some cookies, pull that out, see what we can do. If you didn't know, flour does have an expiration date, so keep an eye on that. Alrighty, it looks almost combined here. Perfect. So it should go back to looking nice and light and fluffy. That's definitely what we're looking for. Now we're going to add our flour. Little bit at a time. You don't want to overwhelm the mixer, and the dough is definitely going to clump up, but I promise you it can handle this much flour. Lock your mixer into place. Low, low, low speed, and add the flour a little bit at a time. Give it some time to come together. Give it a moment to work its way through, and feel free to scrape down the edges of the bowl whenever you feel like it's needed. There we go. Take a moment to scrape down the bowl here. What I love most about these cookies is that they really, really do well sitting in the refrigerator. I'll show you how to wrap them in wax paper, and once they're wrapped up, they're just like every other cooking dough you'd get from the store. Quick, easy, pop it on a cookie sheet, you're good to go. So here I have some of our cookie dough that we made a little bit earlier. It's been chilling in the fridge for about 2 hours. An hour is great, but 2 hours is a little bit better when you're gonna be cutting shapes, which is what we're going to do now. So I have a piece here. We're gonna just unwrap and cut a slice off with a regular kitchen knife. Here we have that slice, but first, to prevent sticking, let's spread a little bit of powdered sugar on our clean surface. Safety first, always put your knife away before you roll your cookie dough. Set that down. Now, you might be asking why we're not rolling with flour. Flour is actually going to toughen our cookies and make them a little bit crunchier than we're looking for, so just go with powdered sugar and it's not going to affect the dough too much. Just start in the center of the dough and apply a little bit of pressure. You're just gonna press your rolling pin gently in the center of your dough, and that's gonna give you just the right amount of pressure to start rolling it out. Now, it may stick to the edges, but that's fine. You're just gonna delicately flick it off, add a little bit more powdered sugar on top, and go back to rolling. Now, don't be too concerned about getting it perfectly round. We're not looking for pizza dough here, we're looking for cookie dough. So go for a symmetrical shape as best you can. If it looks like a potato, that's no problem. Any tears or lifting that you have can be fixed with just the heat of your fingertip. So there was a little tear there. We're gonna push it down with our finger and boom, it's gone. So now that we have a shape rolled out, I'm gonna take one of the smallest cookie cutters I could find. I love making as many cookies as possible with whatever dough I have. As you can see, we still have almost more than half of a log of cookie dough left. So with this amount of dough, I'm gonna see how many cookies I can make. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 cookies that you can whip in the oven at 375 degrees for 9 minutes, and boom, your friends have a little tray of cookies waiting for them. Once you've cut out your shapes, just go ahead and peel off the excess until you're left with what you want on your cookie sheet. Now, don't throw away these scraps. These leftovers can be rolled again and put into more shapes. I would say limit your re-rolling to about 3 times, but I'm sure you'll run out of dough before then. So once we have our shapes all cleanly displayed, what we're going to do is grab a spatula like this. You can also use one that you might have for flipping pancakes, anything that's big and flat, and we're gonna gently scoop our little cookies onto our spatula and put them onto a cookie sheet. Alrighty, so what I have here is some of our sugar cookie dough mixed together with a little bit of melted chocolate. You can throw some chocolate chips into the microwave, add them to the mixer at the end of the cookie dough process, and boom, you have chocolate dough. What I want to do here is roll this again into a semi-symmetrical shape as best I can. It doesn't have to be a perfect circle and it doesn't have to be a perfect rectangle, just something that is generally got some good size to it, especially in the middle here. Now that I've rolled that out, I'm going to use my trusty spatula and just gently help to lift it off the counter. If a piece breaks off, that's no problem. We're going to take our rolled dough and just move it to the side. Now I'm going to take our regular sugar cookie dough, unwrap it from the package here, sprinkle a little bit more powdered sugar, and I'm going to roll this dough into a similar shape as the last. If it sticks to the rolling pin, that's no problem. You may need to add a little bit more powdered sugar. And you can either do that onto the rolling pin or onto the dough itself. Now, if a spot of chocolate dough gets into this vanilla dough, that's not going to cause any problems because we're going to mix them together anyway. Any rips or tears can just be fixed with your fingertips. The heat from your fingers is actually going to melt the butter in the dough, which is going to make everything come together that much easier. Alrighty, so now that I have our vanilla dough rolled out to a similar size and shape as our chocolate dough, we're going to combine them. So I'm just going to take my chocolate dough here and lay it on top of our vanilla slice. Now you push it down with your fingers, again, using the heat of your hands to slightly melt that butter. And now, my favorite part, we're going to roll. So starting from the top of the dough, just gently pick at the edges until you start to see a lip. Now what you want to do is make sure your fingers are reaching underneath to prevent too much sticking to the countertop. If you need to add a little bit extra powdered sugar, that's going to help the process along, but try not to add too much to this portion of the dough. What we're doing here by rolling is creating a pinwheel shape when you cut these cookies from the fridge. So here we have our roll of dough. Now let me show you what it looks like on the inside. Take your kitchen knife. It's best to let this sit in the fridge for a little while, but I still want to show you the results. We're going to slice right through, and there you can see a swirl. When you bake these cookies, just by slicing off a cookie at a time, you'll have a beautiful swirled pattern just by popping them into the oven, just like that. So, I'm going to show you how to make a fantastic buttercream frosting. Now that we've prepared all of our cookies, this is really the final touch to pop right in the middle of our cookie charcuterie board. What I love about this recipe is it's 2, 2, and 2. So it's gonna be 2 sticks of butter, and I've already put them in my mixer to soften on my counter while we have our conversation. It's gonna be 2 cups of powdered sugar and 2 teaspoons of any milk you have in the fridge. So once we combine all of those into our mixer, we're gonna turn it on low. Instead of adding the powdered sugar over and over, which can puff up over the counter, go ahead and toss it all into the mixer and let it fluff up together. So I'm going to add just a little bit more milk. Now, you really want to leave this to mix until it gets light and fluffy, almost white. And that should take about 5 minutes. It's really looking beautiful. Give it the time, I promise it'll be worth it. If you want to come in close, it's beautiful. You can move to high speed as you continue through. The secret ingredient is really going to be air. So as much air as you can get into the mix, that's really going to help your buttercream be perfect. This recipe is super simple. The reason that I love to have this just whipped up and sitting in my fridge is if you have unexpected company, you can put some cookies out, whether they're homemade or store-bought, and boom, homemade buttercream frosting. The reason we took the time to make this dough today is how many of you have a roll of tollhouse sitting in your fridge right now? Yeah, plenty of you, I'm sure. Wouldn't you rather have something homemade? It really impresses your friends, your guests, boyfriends, girlfriends. If you get that surprise text that someone's coming over, you can be the Martha Stewart of your house and make sure you have something homemade waiting for them. The buttercream helps as well. Everybody loves buttercream. That should be whipped and ready to go. Oh, and you can see how fluffy and beautiful it is. Just give it the time, and I promise you the secret ingredient is air, time, and a little bit of your patience. So now that we've made our buttercream, we're going to add it to our beautiful cookie charcuterie board. Oh, take a look at that. Now you can add whatever flavor you like to this. A little sprinkle of jam never hurt anybody. You could even add sprinkles if you wanted to. Chocolate syrup, marshmallows, really any topping you wanted to add is just going to enhance the buttercream. I've even sprinkled chocolate chips on top just to add a little fun texture and color to the board. The best part part about making this recipe is having something homemade that you can bring out for your friends. So I have my friend, the owner of the Creative Corner Studio here in Orlando, Janae Thomas. Come on out, girl. Hi. Ready to try?
Yes, I'm so excited.
Let's do it.
All right.
Go. These are so good.
God bless you. It's so good. Love it.
And so quick to make. Well, cheers to my first cooking show at the Creative Corner.